Tonight, we step into the damp morning round of the 1880s Bristol Quay lamp cleaners as you walk beside them before the harbour has fully woken. Settle in and let the work move slowly. The glass is cool under your fingers, and the ladder gives a small wooden creak as it settles against the iron post. A pale light lies over the floating harbour, soft as washed linen, and the air smells of river mud, coal smoke, wet rope, and yesterday's rain. You can hear a cartwheel somewhere along the quay, turning over stone sets with a hollow, patient sound. Here, the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner begins with the lamps that have burned through the night, their panes filmed with soot, salt, and the fine black dust of the docks. You carry a small kit with you, not much to look at but familiar in the hand. There's a cloth folded flat, a scraper with a worn handle, a little brush, a key for the lamp doors, and perhaps a tin for screws and small bits that shouldn't be lost. The tools have their own quiet weight. After enough mornings, you know where each one sits without looking. The quay is not empty, but it is not busy yet. A man in a cap moves sacks near a warehouse door. A gull calls once from a roof ridge and then thinks better of it. The masts in the harbour make thin black lines against the brightening sky, and every rope seems to hold a little moisture, shining faintly where the dawn finds it. We begin where the night has left its traces. The gas lamp is still warm in its metal crown, though the flame is gone, and when you open the little door, a stale breath of heat and soot comes out. The glass panes are clouded near the top. Your cloth darkens almost at once, taking in the smudge that the night made while the city slept. A lamp cleaner's day in 1880s Bristol is not grand work. It doesn't call much attention to itself, but you can imagine how different the quay would feel without it, how the lamps would grow dimmer by small degrees until the night became uncertain around the moorings, the warehouse steps, and the slick edges of the water. So you climb, open, wipe, check, and close. Then you step down again. The ladder is shifted a few yards along the quay, and the whole small motion begins once more, with the same mild scrape of wood on stone, and the same patient turn of the key in the lamp door. Some lamps stand close to warehouse fronts, where the smell is of timber, jute, stale grain, and damp brick. Others stand nearer the water, where you catch the mineral smell of mud and the faint sourness of the harbour at low tide. The floating harbour holds its level more steadily than the old tidal river once did, but the quays still breathe with weather, trade, and river air. By now, your hands know the first part of the day. You look at the glass before you touch it. You notice whether the soot is heavy, whether rain has streaked the panes, whether a hinge is beginning to stiffen, or whether a burner has left a strange mark on the inside crown. Nothing is rushed. The whole morning is made of small inspections. A good lamp needs clear glass and a steady flame. It needs the gas to pass cleanly through the jet. It needs no loose door rattling in the wind, no cracked pane letting weather inside, no crust of dirt dulling the light. We tend to think of a lamp as one simple glow, but you learn it is really a collection of small agreements. The post agrees to stand straight. The bracket agrees to hold. The pipe agrees to bring gas from the hidden line below, through the buried dark under the stones. The key agrees to turn. The cleaner agrees to return, day after day, before evening asks the lamp to do its patient work again. There is comfort in that kind of order. You don't need to decide what the morning is for. The quay has already given you your round, and the lamps wait in their places, one after another, as if they've been counting on the sound of your steps. The first cloth grows black quickly, and you fold it to find a cleaner corner. Soot is soft at first touch, almost velvety, but it clings to the creases of your fingers and gathers under the nails. It smells faintly oily, mixed with the sharp metal scent inside the lantern head. When the morning is cold, the grime feels warmer than the glass. You might carry a small bottle of spirits or cleaning liquid for stubborn panes. Though much of the work is hand, breath, cloth, and patience. The cleaner rubs in circles, then along the edges, where the soot hides in narrow seams. The glass never becomes fine drawing room glass. It only needs to be clear enough for honest harbour light. As we move along the Bristol Quay, the city begins to thicken around us. A warehouse door slides open with a groan. Boots cross the stones. Somewhere behind the buildings, a church bell measures the hour with a tone softened by damp air. The bell doesn't hurry anyone. It only reminds you that the working day has entered the room. The lamp cleaner belongs to that hour between night work and day work. The watchmen have made their rounds already. The dock labourers are coming in. The clerks will follow with ledgers, ink, and clean cuffs. And the ship's men will argue gently over cargo, tide, weather, and who is waiting for whom. You pass through all of it with your ladder and kit. You are useful, but not central. People make room without much comment. A cart driver shifts his horse a step aside. A boy carrying a message looks at the ladder, then at your soot-darkened hand, and goes on. Work recognizes work without ceremony. The lamps themselves vary a little, and that keeps the round from becoming blank. One has a door that sticks in wet weather. Another holds soot near the left pane because the burner draws unevenly. One near a warehouse corner always collects dust from sacks being dragged across the threshold. You remember these things the way others remember faces. In the 1880s, Bristol is already an old port, layered with older habits. The keystones have felt iron-rimmed wheels, boot heels, casks, bales, rain, and the steady abrasion of trade. Ships have come in with timber, grain, sugar, tobacco, and countless goods wrapped, crated, tied, and counted. The lamps watch all of it, and each morning you tend the watchers. You open them gently, you clear their eyes. You make sure that when fog or winter dusk comes down, the quayside will not vanish into a black confusion of ropes, bollards, steps, and water. The work has a rhythm that settles the body. Climb 3 or 4 rungs, balance your weight, open the latch, wipe the pane from inside and out, brush away soot around the burner, look for damage, close the door until it catches, step down slowly, because the stones may be wet, and because there's no use rushing what must be repeated all day. After a while the sounds become familiar enough to soothe you. The little click of the lamp key, the soft rasp of cloth on glass, the hollow bump of the ladder being lifted, the faint hiss from a nearby gas line when a valve is tested. Even the harbour sounds seem to fall into the same measure. There's a sweet, stale smell, where goods have rested overnight under canvas. Grain dust drifts near open doors. Timber smells resinous when it's damp, like a forest remembered inside a city. Coal leaves its dark powder on ledges and cuffs. Rope has its own scent too, hempy and wet, and the lamp cleaner carries all these traces home in the cloth of his coat. You may stop at a corner where the wind comes in from the water. The chill slips under your collar. You flex your fingers once before opening the next lamp. The metal key is cold enough to bite, but the movement warms you again, and the work answers the body's small discomforts without needing many words. And as the morning spreads along the harbour, we leave the first lamps behind us and follow the round toward the busier stretch of the Bristol Quay, where the day's trade begins to pass beneath the cleaned glass. The cleaned lamps look modest in the grey light, almost ordinary now that their night's duty is over. But as we pass beneath them, you can feel how much of the harbour depends on such ordinary care. A clearer pane means a wider pool of evening light, and a steadier burner means a man can see the ringbolt at his feet, or the wet lip of stone where the key falls away. You may not think of it while wiping glass in the morning, but your hands are preparing the dark hours. That is part of the calm of the work, because each small task belongs to a later comfort. Along the busier stretch of the Bristol Quay, the lamps gather more grime than those near quieter corners, because wagons pass close and horses shake damp from their coats. The air is warmer here, with breath, steam, tobacco smoke, and the sour, sweet smell of cargo that has travelled too long under canvas. You stand the ladder where wheels have not yet crossed, and you wait a moment while 2 men carry a crate past your shoulder. Their boots scrape, their voices dip, and then there is room for you again. The lamp door opens with its private little complaint, and the same dark film waits inside. We notice as we go that the lamp cleaner's day is full of small negotiations with other people's work. You don't own the key, and yet for a few minutes at each post, you make a quiet claim upon it. A carter wants space for his horse. A porter wants the shortest line to the warehouse door. A ship's boy wants to run where he shouldn't. You wait, adjust, shift the ladder, and begin again because the lamps will still be there when the path clears. The stones are uneven underfoot, each one holding a shallow shine after rain, and the ladder must be placed with care so it won't rock while you climb. Your palms can feel the old polish on the side rails where many mornings have worn the wood smooth. It smells faintly of damp ash and linseed oil. When you lift it, there is a familiar pull through your shoulders, not heavy enough to complain about, but steady enough to remind you that the work is bodily. A lamp cleaner may not lift bales or roll casks, but by noon he knows he has been moving. The lamp itself sits just above eye level once you are on the rungs, close enough for you to see where soot has gathered in a crescent above the burner. Gaslight leaves different traces from oil, finer and drier in some places, stickier where damp has crept in. The burner may need brushing, and the tiny openings must not be clogged by grit. You use the small brush, lightly, almost as if grooming something delicate. We can imagine the sound, soft bristles against metal, nearly lost under the harbour's morning murmur. In 1880s Bristol, gas has already changed the look of night, though it hasn't made night vanish. The lamps do not blaze like the later electric lamps will. They make islands instead, each one a circle of workable light, warm-edged and slightly yellow. Between those circles, shadows remain. That is why a clean pane matters, because a lamp with dirty glass shrinks its island and lets the harbour dark press closer to the stones. You learn to look for cracks in the glass, especially after rough weather. A fine line near the corner may not seem much in daylight, but wind and rain will find it, and the next cold night may widen it. If a pane must be replaced, you mark it in memory or report it when the round is done. Perhaps you carry a spare for certain lamps, wrapped in cloth, if the day's instructions call for it. More often, you note the trouble and keep moving, trusting the slow chain of maintenance that keeps the quay in order. There is something restful in knowing the limits of your responsibility. You don't decide when cargo moves or which ship has berth. You clean, inspect, report, and return. For the listener half asleep beside us, there is a kindness in that boundary. The day has edges. The task has a shape. The hands know where they belong. By mid-morning, the Bristol Quay has found its full working voice, and we move with the lamp cleaner through the sound of wheels, ropes, bells, and low conversation. The lamps seem quieter now, almost shy above the traffic, and you may need to pause longer before each climb. A horse's harness jingles nearby. A warehouse pulley squeals as a load rises. The smell of warm animal hide mixes with tar, wet timber, and the faint metallic tang from the lamp fittings. Through it all, your cloth keeps making its patient black half-moons on glass. Sometimes a lamp stands near a doorway where clerks pass, and you hear the scratch of their pens when the door is open. Ink, paper, and dust drift from the counting room, a different world from the keystones, but tied to the same ships and goods. You may glimpse columns of figures in a ledger, neat as fence rails, while your own record is less written than remembered. This lamp sticks, that one smokes. The one by the corner is often struck by passing loads. Your mind keeps a quiet map, and our walk follows it. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner may have started before breakfast, or with only a piece of bread and a little tea to warm the stomach. Work like this fits around the hours of others, and the lamps can't wait until the quay is convenient. You might carry something wrapped in paper, bread with dripping, a heel of cheese, or a small bit of cold meat if the week has allowed it. When you pause, you eat standing, leaning near a warehouse wall where the wind is less sharp. The bread tastes of flour, salt, and the soot on your fingers unless you've wiped them well. A morning meal on the quay is not a romantic thing, yet it has its comforts. The wall behind your back holds the day's weak warmth. The harbour water moves against moored hulls with a soft slap. Someone laughs down the line, not loudly, but enough to loosen the air. You chew slowly, because there is no table to leave, and no bell demanding you back that exact second. The lamps wait, as they always do, patient and upright. When you return to the round, the first touch of the metal key feels familiar again. It may be kept on a ring with others, each one worn to a dull shine by years of turning. You know which key by feel, the way a householder knows the front door in the dark. The lamp door opens, and there is the small sheltered world inside, with its burner, its soot, its corners, and its little weather of stale heat. We enter that world for a minute, clean it, and close it against the day. The glass is sometimes more stubborn where the harbour fog has worked with soot to make a grey paste along the lower edge. You press the cloth into the seam with a thumbnail. The dirt yields slowly. A lamp cleaner develops respect for edges, hinges, screws, places where dirt gathers because no one else looks closely. There is a lesson there, though we don't need to name it too brightly. Many things in life become clear again only when someone attends to the corners. The city above the quay carries on with its own layered sounds. Hooves pass over a bridge. A barrel is set down too hard and gives a deep wooden knock. A woman's voice calls from an upper window, softened by distance. Rainwater drips from a gutter into a shallow puddle, one drop after another, while you brush the burner clean. None of these sounds asks to be remembered, yet together they make the day feel held. Some lamps are fed from gas mains laid under streets and along working routes, bringing fuel from the gasworks through pipes hidden from sight. You don't see that network during the ordinary round. You see only the last small part, the place where invisible gas becomes visible light. That is often how labor works on the quay. The hidden work beneath supports the visible work above, and you, with your cloth and ladder, stand at the meeting point. If the burner seems uneven, you may test it later in the day, or leave word for a fitter, depending on how the local arrangement is managed. The lamp cleaner knows the difference between dirt and defect. Dirt is yours. Defect belongs to another hand, though you are often the first to notice it. You become a reader of small symptoms. A smear, a scorch mark, a smell, a looseness in the hinge, each one tells you what kind of attention the lamp needs. And as the morning shifts toward dinner hour, we follow the cleaner away from the busiest wagons and into a quieter line of lamps near the warehouses, where the work becomes slower, closer, and more sheltered from the harbour wind. The noise drops behind us by degrees. The stones are still damp, but less trampled here, and the air smells more of brick, old timber, and sacks stored in shadow. You can hear your own steps again. The ladder's feet touch down with a small hollow sound, and the next lamp waits beside a wall darkened by many seasons of smoke. This quieter stretch of the Bristol Quay has its own kind of life, because not all work is loud. A warehouse cat slips along the base of the wall, quick and silent, and disappears behind a stack of empty crates. Dust hangs in a shaft of light from an open loft door. Somewhere inside, men are moving goods with slow thuds that travel through timber floors. You stand close to the lamp and smell damp mortar, cold iron, and the faint sweetness of grain. The day feels more enclosed here, as if the harbour has lowered its voice for us. A lamp near a warehouse wall may be protected from the worst of the wind, but it gathers dirt differently. Dust from sacks settles on the outer ledges. Spiders sometimes make a beginning near the bracket, though the heat of the flame discourages them from coming too close. You brush away the fine web, not with irritation, but as part of the same mild resetting of things. The lamp belongs to the evening, and the evening will need it open, clear, and ready. You might notice old scratches on the post, where hooks, ropes, or careless loads have struck it over the years. Paint flakes near the base. Iron shows through in dull patches, browned by weather. If the post is newly painted, the smell lingers for days, thick and oily, catching in the throat on warm afternoons. In the 1880s, much of the working city bears these layers: paint over iron, soot over paint, rain over soot, hand over rail. You can feel history as texture before you ever read it in a book. We pause at one lamp that always seems to hold more dirt than the others. Perhaps it stands where smoke from a nearby chimney curls under certain winds. Perhaps the lamp door doesn't seal as cleanly as it should. You know it before you open it, the same way you know a step that dips on a familiar stair. The cloth goes black quickly. You fold it again, rub the glass in careful strokes, and let the dirt come away little by little. The lamp cleaner's hands are practical hands. They do not remain clean, but they become skilled in small pressures. Too hard, and you risk loosening a pane or bending a part that is already tired. Too light, and the soot stays. The right pressure is something learned through repetition, not taught in a grand way. You feel it through cloth, glass, and metal, through mornings that look much like one another until they become a kind of knowledge. There may be a small pail nearby on some rounds. If washing is needed, and the water takes on a grey skin after a few lamps. Cold water tightens the fingers. Soap, if used, leaves a faint, slippery feel that must be wiped away so no film catches the light later. You wring the cloth, and the drops fall onto the stones. For a moment they make dark spots, then blend into the general damp of the quay. The human mind rests more easily with repeated motions than we sometimes admit. Open, wipe, brush, check, close. Lift, carry, set, climb, descend. Each movement answers the last. For you, standing there in the soft warehouse shade, there is no need to chase the whole day at once. There is only this lamp, this pane, this hinge, this little square of light being prepared for later. At times, someone from the warehouse may step out and pass a word with you. Not a long conversation because everyone has work waiting, but enough to mark the day. Weather is always safe to mention. A late ship, a stubborn fog, a cold morning, a lamp that smoked badly the night before. These remarks are not idle. They are the social oil of working places, keeping people known to one another without asking for too much. You might hear about a lamp that seemed dim near closing time, or one that flickered when the wind came off the harbour. You take that in, because the people who work under the lamps become part of your watching. A man unloading sacks may see what you miss at noon. A night watchman may know which flame faltered after midnight. The lamp cleaner is not alone in caring for the light. The quay itself reports back in voices, marks, smells, and memory. In the quieter stretch, lunch can feel almost private. You sit where sacks are stacked under cover, if no one minds, or on a low stone if it is dry enough. The food is plain, and the fingers are never perfectly clean, but hunger makes it good. Tea from a bottle or tin tastes smoky if it was brewed near a fire. The harbour air cools it quickly. You drink anyway, because warmth is not only temperature. Sometimes it is the habit of stopping. The pause is short, but it divides the day. Morning soot is behind you. Afternoon inspection lies ahead. You may check your remaining cloths, count small supplies, and look at the line of lamps still to be tended. The body notices its own work then, in the shoulders, wrists, and knees. Yet the weariness is mild, the kind that comes from steady use rather than strain, and it settles into you like another layer of clothing. As dinner hour passes and the light through the high warehouse openings begins to whiten, we move with the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner into the afternoon part of the round, where the lamps are not merely cleaned, but made ready for the coming dark. The day has turned from clearing away night's residue to preparing for night's return. You can feel that change in the attention. The cloth is still used, the brush still moves, but now your eye goes more often to the burner, the valve, the door catch, and the way each lamp will behave when lit. Afternoon on the Bristol Quay has a different smell from morning. The damp has lifted a little from the stones. Horse sweat is warmer. Tar softens where the sun reaches it, giving off a heavy scent near ropes and seams. The warehouses breathe out stored odors, grain, wood, oil, old paper, and sometimes the faint spice of something far traveled. You stand in this mixture with your kit at your feet, and the lamp above you is quiet, waiting for flame. Gas lamps need steadiness. The burner must be clean enough to let the flame form properly, and the glass must let that flame travel outward without being swallowed by soot. Some lamps use simple burners, and their light depends on the shape and flow of flame. Later improvements will change the character of gaslight, but here, in our 1880s Bristol round, the cleaner still thinks in terms of jets, glass, drafts, and the stubborn habits of each fitting. You check whether the little tap moves cleanly. It should turn without forcing, and it should not feel loose in the hand. A stiff tap may mean dirt, wear, or damp, and forcing it would be poor work. You test gently. There is a faint smell near the fitting, and your nose becomes part of the inspection, trained by use rather than formal lesson. If something smells wrong, you remember it and report it. We often imagine knowledge as something written down, but this kind lives in the senses. Your ear knows the wrong rattle, your fingers know the hinge that has begun to sag, your nose knows the difference between ordinary stale lamp air and a leak that wants attention. Your eyes know the yellow stain where flame has been drawn unevenly. All day, the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner reads the lamps in a language of small signs. The afternoon also brings more interruptions because the quay is fully awake now. Men roll barrels nearby, and each barrel makes a deep, rounded thunder over the stones. A clerk steps out with a paper, frowning at weather that may affect a sailing time. A dog sleeps beneath a cart with one ear lifted. You wait with your hand on the ladder, letting the movement pass. Waiting is part of the job, though no one writes it on a list. When there is room again, you lift the ladder and set it at the next post. The rungs are drier now, but your palms are grimed from the day. The glass catches more daylight, and you can judge your work by the way the pane reflects the pale sky. A clean lamp is almost invisible in the afternoon. That is its modest triumph. It doesn't call attention to itself until evening comes, and the flame makes the glass matter. Some fittings may need a small adjustment to keep the flame from smoking too much. You do what your role allows, and you leave deeper repairs for the proper tradesman. In municipal and dock work, duties often overlap at the edges, but they're still understood by habit. The cleaner cleans, the lighter lights, the fitter fits, though in some places one man may do more than one task. On the Bristol Quay, as we follow this imagined working day, we keep close to the lamp cleaner's patient care. There is no hurry, but there is a route. A route gives the day its spine. You can feel where you are along it by the angle of the sun, the number of clean cloths left, the ache in your arms, and the pattern of warehouses behind you. You know when the harbour wind will meet you at an open corner. You know where the stones become slippery after rain. You know the lamp that stands slightly crooked and the one that catches the last gold of afternoon. The light changes slowly, and because you work with lamps, you notice it. Noon light shows every streak on the glass. Afternoon light warms brick and brass. Toward evening, shadows gather first under carts, then under eaves, then between stacks of cargo. A lamp cleaner may spend his day in daylight, but his mind is always partly turned toward dusk. He is preparing the harbour for an hour that hasn't arrived yet. That preparation has a gentle dignity. You are not making something new. You are keeping something serviceable. You are taking a system that would decay through neglect and giving it another night of usefulness. We can feel the comfort of that, especially in a world that often praises only the fresh and the grand. There is deep human worth in returning to a thing and making it ready again. And as the afternoon draws on, we follow the round toward the wetter, windier lamps near the harbour edge, where Bristol's floating harbour comes close enough for the smell of water to settle on your coat. The sounds open outward here. The slap of water against stone is clearer. Ropes creak against bollards. A vessel shifts slightly at its mooring, wood and iron answering each other with low murmurs. You place the ladder carefully because the edge of the quay is not far away, though the work remains ordinary and calm. The lamps near the water have a different temper. Their metal suffers more from damp air. Their glass may be spotted by wind-blown rain and the fine residue of harbour mist. Salt is not as strong here as by the open sea, but the river and docks carry their own damp breath, and every fitting seems to know it. You touch the post, and it feels colder than those by the warehouses. The paint is rough under your fingers, lifted slightly where weather has worked beneath it. On a misty evening, these waterside lamps are among the most useful. They show the line between stone and water. They mark steps, bollards, mooring rings, and the low shapes of cargo left under covers. You think of that as you clean. The pane must not be merely tidy. It must be clear enough to help someone see where to put a foot, where to cast a rope, where the key turns. Usefulness here has a soft yellow edge. A gull drops to the water and rises again, leaving widening rings. The smell of mud comes up faintly, stirred by movement below the surface. Somewhere a chain runs through a hand or over a fitting with a rough metallic clatter. Your brush pauses, then continues. The lamp does not care about the noise, and in time, neither do you. The hand returns to its motion, and the world settles back around it. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner may carry bits of rag cut from old cloth, because fine linen is not required for soot. A shirt too worn for wearing may still serve a lamp. A scrap of sacking might wrap a dirty tool. Nothing useful is wasted quickly in a working household. You can feel that economy in the kit, in the repaired handle, the reused tin, the cloth washed until it becomes thin as paper. The work carries domestic habits into public space. If a lamp glass is cracked, you notice the way light catches the line even before the lamp is lit. The crack may look like a pale thread. You run no finger along it unless you must, because broken glass has its own quiet warning. Instead, you look, remember, and mark the lamp in your mind. Later, in a yard, office, or workshop corner, the matter may be written down or passed to someone responsible. For now, the route continues. The water's edge makes you more aware of weather. A mild breeze can turn a lamp's flame restless if the casing admits it. Rain can drive into a poorly closed door. Fog can make light bloom outward, softening the very thing the lamp is meant to clarify. The cleaner can't command weather, but he can reduce the small failures that make weather harder. A snug latch, a clean pane, a clear burner. These are modest answers to damp and dark. You may find yourself looking across the harbour while standing beside a cleaned lamp. The ships rest in their berths with ropes drawn firm. Masts and spars make patient lines against the afternoon sky. Men move on deck, small and purposeful, their voices flattened by distance. The city lies close behind, but from this angle the water seems to hold a little quiet of its own. A broad grey surface breathing between walls of trade. There is a tenderness in industrial places when you look at them slowly. The quay is built for labour, profit, storage, movement and account. Yet the details are human at every turn. A glove left on a sill, a pipe tamped out against a stone, a chalk mark on a crate, the worn place on a bollard where ropes have passed for years. You stand among these traces, cleaning a lamp that will add its own small circle to the evening. By late afternoon, the soot on your clothes has become part of you. It smudges the cuff, darkens the thumb, and settles in the lines of the palm. Your coat smells of metal, smoke, damp wool, and harbour air. If you rub your forehead without thinking, you may leave a grey mark there too. No one on the quay finds this remarkable. The day marks everyone according to their work. We continue along the waterside lamps, and the route begins to feel like a slow counting. One lamp by the steps, one near the mooring ring, one beside the warehouse corner where the wind turns sharply, one at the open stretch where rain comes sideways in winter. Each has its own place in the harbour's evening pattern, and as you clean them, you are also checking the shape of night before it arrives. The work may include trimming or tending older oil lamps in some outlying or temporary spots, where gas has not been brought conveniently, though the main key lights of Bristol's working heart are largely gas by this time. If you meet such a lamp, the smell changes at once. Oil has a thicker, more intimate scent than gas, and the wick holds blackened fibers between finger and blade. You trim lightly, clean the chimney, and wipe away the greasy soot that clings differently from gas residue. The wick, if there is one, must not be ragged. A ragged wick smokes and wastes light. You trim it even, not as a tailor cuts cloth, but with the same respect for a clean edge. The chimney glass is lifted, wiped, and set back carefully. It is a small, older rhythm, living beside the newer gaslit city. The quay, like most places, changes unevenly, keeping yesterday's methods in corners while tomorrow's pipes run underfoot. There's comfort in that mixture, because working life rarely changes all at once. Men who knew oil lamps learn gas fittings. Boys who grow up under gaslight may later see electricity creep into streets and stations. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner stands in one of those middle places, where older hands and newer systems share the day. You feel time not as a straight line, but as layers under your boots. And as the afternoon begins to soften toward evening, we turn with the lamp cleaner from cleaning alone toward the final checks that make the Bristol Quay ready for its night lamps to be lit. The air cools by a small degree. Shadows sharpen under the warehouse eaves. The harbour water, which had been dull grey at noon, begins to hold faint strips of sky. You can sense the evening coming, not suddenly, but as a slow change in what the eye notices. The final checks are quiet, but they matter. You close each door with care and make sure it catches. A door left loose may rattle, admit rain, or disturb the flame. You look at the top vent, if the design has one, and brush away anything that might obstruct the draft. You make sure the glass sits properly in its frame. These are the little assurances that let the lighter, whether you or another man, come after with fewer surprises. On some days, the cleaner's work and the lighter's work may be close together in time, especially in winter when dusk comes early and the harbour darkens before the city is ready. In summer there may be a longer pause between preparation and flame. But even in long light, the lamps have to be ready before anyone needs them. That is the quiet discipline of public work. You prepare before the need becomes visible. A man passing might joke lightly that the lamps look clean enough for a parlour, though he won't stop to admire them. You may answer with a small smile, or not at all. The exchange drifts away. Work continues. There is no bitterness in being unnoticed. The whole point of good maintenance is that people move safely through a place without thinking too much about why they can see. The Bristol Quay has many kinds of light before the lamps are lit. There is the pale sky on wet stone. There is lantern light from a shed. There is a glow from a warehouse office where someone has started early against the coming dark. There is a flash on water when a gap opens between buildings. Gas lamps join this company later, but all day they wait in plain sight. Iron flowers without flame. You may return to a lamp already cleaned if something about it bothers you. Perhaps the latch didn't sound right. Perhaps a smear appeared after the paint dried. Good work often includes such returns. Small loops in the larger route. You climb again, open the door again, and correct what needs correcting. No one may see the difference, but you feel it. The lamp is now ready in a way it wasn't before. The tools themselves need care as the day goes on. A brush clogged with soot only spreads dirt. A cloth too black must be folded away for washing. The scraper edge must be kept from nicking the glass. You keep the kit ordered because disorder wastes time and patience. At the bottom of the ladder, the open bag or box becomes a little workshop carried from post to post along the quay. There is a nice humility in a portable workshop. Everything you need must be simple enough to carry and strong enough to survive weather, stone, and daily use. The kit doesn't impress anyone. It simply works. A latch key, cloths, brush, small tool, perhaps a bit of wire, spare screws, and the knowledge held in your hands. With these, a line of harbour lamps passes from night-stained to evening-ready. As the day lowers, we notice the faces of people changing too. Morning faces looked inward, still waking. Midday faces were occupied and brisk. Late afternoon faces carry the first signs of going home, or going on into another shift. A night watchman may appear, taking up the harbour after others leave it. He will depend on these lamps in ways the daylight workers won't. You may know him by sight. He knows which lamps matter most on foggy nights, which corners feel longest between footsteps, which warehouse walls cast the deepest shade. If he says one lamp burned poorly, you listen. The night watchman and the lamp cleaner share a quiet responsibility for the after-hours quay, though their work touches at the edges rather than standing side by side. The smell of supper fires may drift faintly from streets beyond the dock. Coal smoke changes as households begin their evening. It becomes more domestic, mixed with cooking, damp laundry, and the warmth of rooms behind windows. On the quay, work still goes on, but the city's other life presses close. You can feel the pull of home in it, even while your route continues from lamp to lamp. The final lamps of this stretch stand near a place where the stones slope slightly, and the ladder must be set with more thought. You test it with your weight before climbing. The wood answers steadily. Above, the lamp glass holds a faint reflection of your face, blurred by daylight and the curve of the pane. For a moment, you see yourself as the lamp sees you, close, dark-coated, patient, and marked by soot. We clean that pane slowly. The reflection clears. Behind it, the burner waits, plain and still. There is beauty in such plainness when you've spent the day with it. No ornament is needed. The object has a purpose, and its purpose is kind. It will give light to people who may never know your name. By the time this lamp is closed, the quay has shifted again. A cart that stood there all afternoon is gone. A stack of crates has been covered. The water is darker under the hulls. A bell sounds somewhere across the harbour. Not urgent, just part of the city's evening grammar. You lift the ladder, and the familiar pull returns through your arms. And as evening gathers at the edges of Bristol's harbour, we follow the lamp cleaner toward the place where cleaned lamps become lit lamps, and the day's hidden care turns into visible warmth. The first flame, when it comes, is never large at once. It begins as a small controlled brightness, a point of gold in the bluish air. The glass, cleaned by your hand hours before or only minutes ago, takes that point and multiplies it gently. If you are also lighting, the action is careful and practiced. The gas is turned, the flame is offered, and the burner catches with a soft sound that is more felt than heard. You adjust as needed, neither too high nor too low. Too much flame wastes and smokes. Too little leaves the key uncertain. The right flame has a steadiness that satisfies the eye. If another lighter follows after you, you still watch the first lamps take life with a cleaner's private interest. A lamp you cleaned well has a clear glow. A pane you worried over shows whether the extra rubbing mattered. The evening becomes a kind of test, but not a harsh one. It simply reveals the day's work in warm circles along the stone. The Bristol Quay changes under gaslight. Edges soften. Wet patches on the stones shine amber. Iron rings gleam briefly when someone passes. Ropes become lines of shadow and gold. The water takes each lamp and breaks it into trembling pieces, stretching them with every small movement against the wall. You stand for a moment beside that trembling light, and it feels as if the harbour is breathing flame. People move differently once lamps are lit. Steps become more deliberate near the water. Faces appear and disappear in pools of light. A cart passes, and its wheels cross brightness, shadow, as if measuring the key in slow bars of music. The lamp cleaner has spent the day serving this moment. Not a grand moment, a useful one, a warm one. There is no need to admire it loudly. You simply know. The soot on your hands, the rubbed glass, the stiff latch, the careful check of the burner, all of it has become this modest glow. A man can find his way to a warehouse door. A watchman can see the corner ahead. A rope can be handled without guessing. The harbour has not become bright as day, and it shouldn't. It has become legible enough for night. As we walk under the newly lit lamps, the smell of gas mingles with water and smoke. It is a distinct scent, sharp and faintly sweet, belonging to old evenings in industrial cities. The glass is warm now if you stand close. Small insects may come when the season allows. A passing coat catches the light and then releases it. The key keeps working, but more softly, as if every sound has been lined with cloth. You might feel tired now in the way steady workers feel tired, not emptied, but used. The shoulders remember the ladder. The fingers remember cold metal and dirty glass. The eyes remember checking one small fitting after another. Yet there is also satisfaction, quiet as a banked fire. You can look down the row of lamps and know your day is held there, one glow after another. The lamp cleaner's round teaches a gentle way of seeing. It asks you to notice what dims, what loosens, what clouds over, and what can be restored by patient attention. It asks for no flourish. It asks only return. In that return there is a kind of companionship with the material world, with iron, glass, flame, stone, and the damp air of Bristol's harbour. The evening lamps are not all identical when lit. One burns a little warmer. One throws a broader shape on the wall behind it. One shows the slight waviness of its old glass, making the flame shimmer as if underwater. You learn these differences, and perhaps you feel a small fondness for them. Work often makes companions of things that others pass without seeing. At the edge of one pool of light, a man stands reading a note, holding it close because the paper has softened in the damp. Near another lamp, a porter knots a rope with hands that move from habit. Farther along, a horse lowers its head, steam rising from its back in the cooling air. The lamps do not stop the night. They make room within it. We keep moving, because the route continues until it doesn't. Each lit lamp behind us becomes part of the harbour's evening pattern. Ahead, a few remain dull and dark, their glass reflecting only the last of the sky. The contrast tells you where work is still waiting. So we go on, with the kit lighter in one way and heavier in another, carrying the day's grime toward its end. The next lamp takes flame cleanly. The one after that needs a slight adjustment, and you listen to the change in the burner as much as you watch it. The sound is small, but small sounds matter when your face is close to glass and metal. A steady flame has a settled voice. A troubled one mutters. You turn the fitting gently and wait for the light to smooth itself. It is easy to forget. From a distance, How many separate acts make up a public evening? The lamps seem to appear as a single fact, as if the city has decided to glow. But close beside the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner, we see the truth more kindly. Light is assembled by hands. It is wiped into readiness. It is checked, carried, sparked, adjusted, and trusted to burn. The sky above the harbour deepens now, not black, but blue-grey, with a faint last paleness toward the west. Chimneys stand as flat shapes. Masts lose their detail. Warehouse windows glow here and there, warmer than the sky, each one holding its own interior world. The lamps along the quay answer them, lower and steadier, making a chain for footsteps to follow. Your body begins to think of ending, even while the hands finish the work. That happens with familiar labor. The mind knows the last stretch. It senses the turn toward the yard, the office, the place where tools are put down. But habit keeps you attentive. The final lamps deserve the same care as the first. A tired hand still closes the latch properly. And as night settles more fully over the Bristol Quay, we follow the cleaner through the last working stretch, where the harbour quiets by degrees and every lamp now carries its small share of the dark. The busiest wagons have gone or are going. The warehouse doors close one by one, each with a heavy wooden sound that travels along the stones. A man calls a final instruction from inside, and then the voice is swallowed by boards, brick and distance. The lamps show the closing city in pieces. A broom leaning by a door, a coil of rope, a puddle with gold at its edge. The worn threshold of a warehouse where countless boots have passed. You see these things because the light gives them back to you. Earlier in daylight, they were merely part of the quay. Now each one rests in its own small circle, plain and tender. The night watchman's footsteps may begin to replace the laborer's noise. They are slower, more spaced, and more listening. He carries his own lamp or lantern perhaps, but the fixed quay lamps are his larger companions. You understand that. Your work and his share the same quiet hours, even if yours began in morning and his continues into darkness. The harbour is never wholly asleep, but it does become more thoughtful. A late cart crosses the stones, and the horse's breath shows pale in the lamplight. Leather creaks. The driver's shoulders are rounded against the damp. The wheels move through a shallow shining patch and leave ripples in the reflected gold. You stand aside, holding the ladder close, feeling its worn wood against your sleeve. When the cart passes, the sound recedes slowly, and the quay settles again. There may still be one lamp that needs attention after lighting. Perhaps its flame smokes against the glass, leaving a dark bloom where you had cleaned so carefully. You open it with caution, aware of warmth now, and adjust what you can. Heat changes the feel of the work. The metal is no longer morning cold. The glass gives back warmth to your knuckles. The smell inside is stronger, more immediate, a living mix of gas, heat, and soot beginning again. That is the quiet truth of maintenance. The moment a thing is restored, it begins to wear again. The clean lamp starts gathering soot as soon as it burns. The polished brass dulls, the painted post weathers, the wiped pane receives rain, smoke, and harbour breath. This could seem discouraging, but in the warm workshop spirit of the work, it becomes something gentler. It means tomorrow has a task ready, and the hands will know what to do. You close the warm lamp and watch it settle. The flame steadies. The glass is clear enough. The light falls where it should, across the stone and toward the bollard. That is enough. Much of a working life is made of enough. Not perfect, not praised, but sound, useful, and ready for the night. The last part of the route may take us past places we saw in the morning, now transformed by the lamps we tended. The warehouse wall that smelled of damp brick now holds a soft amber patch. The lamp that always gathered soot by the corner now burns cleaner than expected. The waterside post, cold under your morning hand, stands in a tremble of reflected light. Returning makes the day feel circular, and the circle is soothing. You may pass a window where someone inside bends over a ledger by lamplight. The indoor flame and the outdoor flame belong to the same city of evening work. Pens still move, accounts still close. Someone counts, someone guards, someone sweeps, someone checks a door, and you, having cleaned the quay lamps, move quietly through the result of your own labor. There is companionship in all those separate tasks. The kit is dirtier now. The used cloths are folded apart from the clean ones. The brush smells of soot. The key ring rests heavy in the pocket or hand. Each object will need putting away, and perhaps some will be cleaned before the next day. Tools that care for lamps need care themselves. Nothing escapes the circle, and that is all right. As we near the end of this portion of the Bristol Quay, the harbour's larger sounds grow fewer. Water remains. Rope remains. Occasional footsteps remain. The lamps make a faint presence rather than a loud one, and their light rests on iron, stone, wood, and water without asking for notice. You can stand beneath one and hear the small living sound of the flame. It is barely there, but once you hear it, it seems to belong to the night. A worker heading home may pass under several lamps without looking up. That is part of your success. He sees the ground well enough. He avoids a puddle, steps around a coil of rope, and finds the street beyond the quay. The lamps have done what they were meant to do. The cleaner's day has entered another person's ease without needing to be named. And still, the work is not quite finished, because any good round ends with tools, notes, and the small settling of responsibility for tomorrow. We turn away from the brightest line of the quay and follow the lamp cleaner toward the place where the ladder can be stored and the day's observations can be handed on. The stones sound different underfoot now, with fewer wheels to cover them. Your boots make a measured rhythm, and the ladder gives a muted knock against your shoulder. The air has cooled fully, and the smell of the harbour has deepened. The storage place may be a yard, a shed, or a corner of a municipal or dockside workshop, depending on how the work is arranged. It will smell of wood, oil, damp coats, old metal, and perhaps the ashes of a small stove. Such rooms have a particular evening feel. They hold the fatigue of tools after use. They hold the day's grime without complaint. When you step inside from lamplight, the shadows seem brown rather than black. You set the ladder down with care, not dropping it, because it has carried you all day and will carry you again. The side rails are checked by habit. A split, a loose rung, a worn foot. These things matter before morning comes. You wipe the worst dirt from your hands, though the skin stays grey in the lines. The cloths are sorted for washing or reuse. The brush is tapped lightly, releasing a small fall of black dust. If there is a ledger or report, the notes are plain. A cracked pane near the waterside steps, a stiff latch by the grain warehouse, a burner that smoked near the corner. Words like these do not sound poetic, yet they preserve the safety and order of the quay. They turn your sensory memory into shared work. Tomorrow or the next day, another hand may act because you noticed. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's knowledge doesn't live only in the report. It lives in the way he pauses before mentioning a fault, making sure he names the right lamp. It lives in the route he can trace without a map. It lives in knowing which defects can wait and which should not be left long. The spoken word, the written note, and the remembered place all work together, quietly. There may be a basin for washing, and the water clouds quickly. Soot leaves the hands reluctantly. It settles under nails and in the small cracks of dry skin. Soap smells plain and sharp after a day of gas and harbour air. You rub the palms, rinse, rub again, and still the towel comes away grey. That, too, is ordinary. Some work follows you home, no matter how carefully you wash. A coat shaken at the door releases the day's dust. The shoulders feel lighter without the kit. You may hear the lamps outside through the open door only as presence, not sound. A glow sensed more than seen. If the shed has a small window, one of the quay lamps may be visible there, blurred by old glass. It looks gentle from inside, and perhaps you feel a quiet pride that you helped make it so. We can linger here, not to end the day too sharply, but to feel how work settles after motion. The tools have their places. The ladder leans where it should. The key is hung or pocketed, according to habit. The faults have been named. Outside, the harbour carries on under the lamps, and inside, the worker's body begins to release the route, lamp by lamp, step by step. The evening after such a day is not empty. It is full of small sensations. The warmth of a room after damp air, the taste of tea or broth, the roughness of clean but tired hands. The echo of quay sounds still moving faintly in the mind. When you close your eyes, you may see glass panes, little doors, yellow flames, and a long line of Bristol lamps receding into the mist. And as the night deepens beyond the workshop door, we stay with that slow line of lamps along the quay, each one cleaned by patient hands, each one holding a small space open in the dark. And if you stand beneath one of those lamps, just for a moment, you can feel how the day's labor has become part of the harbor's breathing. The flame is small, but it gives shape to the wet stones, the mooring posts, the black lines of rope, and the low warehouse doors that wait for morning. You hear water pressing softly against the quay wall. You smell gas, mud, damp wood, and coal smoke, all mingled into one evening scent. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner would know this hour well, even when his own shift had nearly finished, because the work of daylight was always answered by the usefulness of dark. A lamp cleaned in the morning proves itself after sunset. A latch checked at noon holds firm when the wind comes down the harbour. A pane wiped clear before dinner now spreads the flame in a steadier circle. You can imagine standing there, tired but watchful, letting your eyes travel from lamp to lamp. The row is never perfectly straight in the way a drawing might show it. It bends with the quay, steps around buildings, follows the edge of water, and pauses where gates or warehouse fronts interrupt the line. That makes the light feel human. It belongs to the working shape of the place, not to a ruler laid over a plan. As we follow it, we follow the old habits of Bristol itself, built by trade, stone, weather, and hands. A cleaned lamp near the water casts its reflection down into the floating harbour, where it lengthens and trembles with every small movement. The reflection is not useful in the practical sense, but it is still part of the lamp's work. It softens the quay. It gives the night a little depth. You may notice it while waiting for a cart to pass, or while fastening your coat against the cold, and it rests in the mind like a low note. By the 1880s, Bristol had lived with gaslight long enough for many people to take it for granted, though the older memory of darker streets had not entirely vanished. The lamp cleaner stands between those memories. He serves a modern system, with pipes, burners, municipal routines and ordered rounds, yet his tools remain simple enough to hold in one hand. Cloth, brush, key, ladder, and eye. That combination carries the night for many feet of quay. We can drift back into the next morning now, because the lamp cleaner's work is never only one day. It returns with the dawn, and the dawn returns with fresh soot on the glass. The lamps that looked so clear last evening have been breathing flame through long damp hours. Their panes have collected new shadows. Their burners have gathered faint crusts of use. So you come again, under a pale sky, and the harbour greets you with the same quiet mixture of smoke, water, stone, and waiting work. The morning after rain is heavier. The keystones shine darkly, and puddles hold fragments of warehouse walls and broken sky. Your boots make a softer sound. The ladder's feet must be tested more carefully, because wet grit can shift under them. When you open the first Bristol Quay lamp, a bead of water may run along the frame and drop onto your sleeve. The glass is cold, and the soot has turned slightly tacky near the edges. You breathe out slowly and begin. The cloth moves in arcs. The grime loosens. Your fingers find the corners. The work is the same, but weather changes its texture, and that keeps the body awake without disturbing the mind. A dry morning gives powder. A wet morning gives paste. Frost gives stiffness. Fog gives a kind of soft grey veil over everything, so the lamps seem to emerge from the air only when you're close enough to touch them. And as this damp new day opens across the Bristol Quay, we follow the cleaner into the part of the routine shaped most by weather, where rain, fog, and cold become quiet companions to the lamps. The first sign is always in the hands. Cold metal speaks before the sky does. A latch that turns easily in summer may resist in winter, and a door hinge may hold a little crust of damp grit. You learn to be patient with it. The fog of a harbour morning is not like smoke from one chimney. It has no single source. It gathers from river air, wet stone, cool walls, and the low places where night has lingered. It softens masts and turns ropes into faint lines. It makes distant footsteps sound closer than they are, while close voices seem wrapped in wool. When you clean a lamp in such fog, the pane clears beneath your cloth. but the world behind it remains pale and blurred. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's task becomes especially valuable in fog because a dirty lamp loses itself quickly in thick air. Even a clean flame may be reduced to a warm blur. A sooted pane makes that blur smaller and weaker, so you wipe with a little extra care, knowing that tonight, if the weather holds, someone may depend on that modest circle of light to find a mooring post or a warehouse step. The thought is practical, not dramatic. It simply belongs to the work. Rain leaves streaks that look harmless until evening light catches them. You polish them out while the day is still grey. Water also settles at the lower edge of the frame, carrying soot into a dark line. You press the cloth there, fold it, press again, and feel the cold wetness come through to your fingers. The smell inside the lamp is different after rain, less smoky at first, more metallic, as if iron and water have been speaking all night. In hard weather, the ladder becomes part of your attention in a deeper way. You don't climb by habit alone. You set it, test it, climb slowly, and keep one hand aware of balance while the other does the work. The quay may be busy even in poor weather, but people move with a shared caution. Wheels splash through shallow water, coats shine with rain, voices stay lower, as if the weather itself has asked everyone to speak more softly. A cold morning can make the fingertips clumsy. You may tuck one hand under your arm for warmth before handling a tiny screw or latch. Breath shows faintly near the lamp glass. The cloth stiffens where water has touched it. Yet the movements continue, and soon the body finds heat through repetition. Lift, set, climb, clean. Move to the next. The old rhythm is a kind of stove carried inside the muscles. Fog also changes how people greet one another. A man appears out of whiteness, gives a word, and vanishes again within a few steps. The lamp cleaner becomes known by sound as much as sight, by the knock of ladder wood, the scrape of its foot, the small ring of keys. You hear a cart before you see it. You step aside before the horse's head takes shape. The whole quay becomes closer and farther at the same time. On such days, the lamps seem less like objects and more like promises. They are dark now, but everyone knows they will be needed. You clean them with that need in mind. You brush the burner and imagine its warm point later in the fog. You close the little door and test the catch. The hand lingers for half a second longer, making sure the lamp is ready to stand against a night that will soften every edge. There is a particular smell when fog meets coal smoke. It is thick, faintly bitter, and it clings to wool. It settles in the throat without becoming harsh. On the Bristol Quay, that smell mixes with damp grain, horse breath, timber, tar, and the river's low, earthy odor. You carry it with you through the round. Even when you step into shelter, it remains in the folds of your coat, a weather you can wear. If the weather is clear instead, the work feels more open. Sunlight shows every streak you missed. The glass flashes suddenly, and you may turn your head to avoid the glare. On such a morning, the harbour has more colour: red brick, greenish water, black hulls, pale rope, and the blue of sky caught in puddles. Yet the cleaner's movements remain nearly the same. Weather changes the scene, but routine holds the day. That is one of the quiet mercies of the job. The world around the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner can be wet, clear, fogged, cold, or mild. But the next action is usually plain. You open the lamp. You see what the night has done. You set it right as far as your tools allow. In a life with weather, traffic, orders, delays and tiredness, such plainness has a gentle strength. As the weathered morning wears on, we follow the cleaner toward the maintenance yard and stores, where the hidden side of the lamp round waits in shelves, spare parts, cloth bundles, and the ordinary smells of oil and iron. Not every hour is spent on the quay itself. Some hours belong to preparation. A public lamp system needs stores as surely as a ship needs rope and sailcloth. Without spare glass, screws, brushes, keys, and ladders in repair, the round would fray at the edges. The yard is quieter than the quay, but not silent. A hammer taps somewhere with measured patience. A door opens on swollen hinges. A cart backs in, its wheels grinding over grit. Inside the store, the air feels close and dry compared with the harbour. It smells of wood shavings, lamp oil from older fittings, Paint, metal filings, damp coats, and the sour note of used cleaning rags waiting for washing. You step inside, and the sound of the harbour becomes muffled behind walls. A Bristol Quay lamp cleaner might come here to exchange cloths, report a damaged pane, fetch a tool, or speak with a fitter about a stubborn burner. The conversation is practical and low. No one needs fine language for a cracked glass or a sticking tap, yet these plain exchanges keep the harbour lit. The cleaner points, names the place, describes the fault, and the other man nods because he knows the lamp, or can find it by the description. Shelves hold small things that matter. Spare panes wrapped so they won't chip, hinges dark with grease, screws sorted by size in tins that once held something else, brushes hanging from nails, a can of paint with a skin forming at the top, a coil of wire, a ragged ledger. The whole place feels like a memory of repairs already made and repairs waiting their turn. You can smell use in every corner. Tools are checked here with the same care given to lamps. A ladder with a loose rung is more than an inconvenience. A key with a worn tooth may fail at the wrong lamp on a wet morning. A brush worn down too far stops cleaning and starts smearing. The cleaner learns that caring for tools is not separate from caring for light. It is the first step, only less visible. In the stores, time moves differently. On the quay, the route pulls you forward. In the yard, attention gathers around objects. You may sit or stand at a bench, wiping a key, trimming frayed cloth edges, shaking soot from a brush, or checking a lantern used for moving through the darker parts of the yard. The bench surface is marked by cuts, dents, rings, and old stains. It has received many days without ever needing to speak of them. A fitter may take apart a burner nearby, laying its pieces in order. The parts are small and plain, but they have their own logic. Gas must flow, air must mix, flame must form, heat must escape, and glass must protect without smothering. You don't need to make a lecture of it. You only need to know enough to respect the arrangement. A clean lamp is a small cooperation between matter and habit. The cloths tell stories too. Fresh ones are pale, or at least pale, compared with the used bundle. By midday, they are grey. By evening, some are nearly black in the folds. Washed cloths never fully return to their first colour. They become work-coloured, softened by water, soap, soot, and repeated wringing. When you hold one, it feels less like a cloth than a record of many lamps. There may be talk in the yard, but it tends to move around the work rather than interrupt it. Weather. Pay. A difficult lamp. A new man learning the route. A warehouse owner complaining about dimness by a gate. Someone mentions a ship expected in. Someone else answers while keeping his eyes on a hinge. We listen gently, because these voices belong to the same world as the tools. They make the labour social without making it noisy. For the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner, the yard is also where public work becomes personal routine. You know where to hang the ladder. You know which shelf holds the better cloths. You know whose tin of screws should not be borrowed without a word. You know the smell of the place in summer and winter. Such knowledge is small, but it makes the day smoother, and smoothness is a blessing in repeated work. And when the stores have yielded what the day requires, we return with the cleaner to the quay, where the lamps wait in their long familiar places and the harbour air opens around us again. The shift from yard to waterfront is always noticeable. The sound broadens, the light changes, the smell of enclosed oil and wood gives way to water, smoke, cargo and weather. You step back into the route as if stepping into a stream you know well. Afternoon repairs are usually minor from the cleaner's point of view, but they give variety to the round. A pane may be changed, and the new glass feels strangely bright in an old frame. A latch may be eased with a small touch of oil. A door may be tightened so it doesn't rattle. The work is still quiet, but it asks for sharper care than wiping alone. The small parts can fall, and the stones below are not forgiving to screws. You hold a screw between finger and thumb, aware of dirt, cold, and the wind's little attempts to interfere. If it drops, it may roll toward a crack or vanish under a cartwheel, so you move slowly. The screwdriver turns. Metal meets metal with a faint squeak. The lamp accepts the new firmness, and when the door shuts properly, the sound is deeply satisfying. A good click can be as comforting as a bell. Replacing glass, when needed, changes the feel of the task. The old pane comes out with care. perhaps wrapped at once if it has a sharp edge. The frame is wiped before the new piece goes in. The new pane may be clearer than its neighbors, and for a while the lamp looks uneven, one side freshly transparent, another side marked by age. The quay is full of such partial renewals. Few things are entirely new, but many things are kept going. This is how a working harbour remains itself, not by freezing in time and not by becoming new all at once, but by receiving countless small acts of attention. A hinge here, a stone there, a rope replaced, a lamp cleaned, a pane changed, a post painted when weather has bitten too deeply. You walk through those acts without seeing most of them, yet they hold the place together. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner would understand that without needing to say it. His day is one thread in a broad fabric of upkeep. Dock workers, carters, clerks, watchmen, fitters, sweepers, boatmen, and warehouse hands all do their part. The lamps do not carry cargo, but they make the carrying safer when light fades. They do not write accounts, but they let a clerk find the right door after dusk. Their service is indirect, which makes it easy to overlook and deeply necessary. The repaired lamp is closed, and you step back to look at it. The inspection is simple. Does it sit right? Does the door hold? Does the glass sit firm? Will rain enter? Will the flame have room? You answer these questions with your eyes and hands. Then you lift the tools, move the ladder, and let the next lamp draw you onward. A passing boy may ask what you are doing if he is young enough not to know, and perhaps you tell him, cleaning the lamps, checking the glass. He may look up as if seeing the lamp for the first time. Children often notice what adults have stopped noticing, but they also forget quickly when something else moves. He runs on, and you return to the latch. For a moment, though, the hidden work has become visible. The sensory world of the quay keeps layering itself over the task. A nearby sack leaks grain, and a few kernels grind under your boot. A rope, tarred and damp, brushes your sleeve. The sun comes through a gap and warms one side of your face. A draft under a warehouse door smells of old wood, paper, and dust. You clean the lamp with all of that around you, and the work absorbs the place. As the afternoon leans toward evening again, we follow the cleaner through the stretch where the lamps stand near streets leading away from the harbour, and the city's domestic sounds begin to meet the dockside rhythm. Here, Bristol feels less like only a port and more like a place where working water and family rooms lie close together. A woman carries a basket along the edge of the street. A child is called indoors. A shop door shuts with a bell that gives one tired little ring. The quay lamps near these approaches matter in another way. They guide not only dock workers, but people crossing between harbour and home. Their light falls on steps, curbs, notices, and corners where streets turn. They make evening errands simpler. They help someone read a posted sign or find the opening to a lane. As you wipe the glass, you are preparing light for ordinary journeys, the kind people make without remembering them later. The lamps here collect a different kind of dirt. Street dust mixes with dock soot. Chimney smoke from houses adds its own film. Hands may touch the posts more often, leaving polished patches near the height of a shoulder or grip. Posters might be pasted nearby, their paper curling in damp weather. The city presses close to the lamp, and the lamp gathers evidence of that closeness. You hear more foot traffic here. Boots, clogs, children's shoes, a quick step, a dragging step, the uneven pace of someone carrying too much. Voices have more domestic tones, less dock command, and more evening fatigue. Someone speaks of supper. Someone mentions coal. Someone asks whether the rain will hold off. The lamp cleaner's route passes through these fragments without collecting them, yet they make the air warmer. A lamp at a street corner may need special attention because corners catch wind. The flame can be troubled if the case is poor or the door does not sit well. You check the seams. You press the latch. You look for tiny gaps where weather might enter. The glass, once cleaned, reflects the street behind you, so your own movement appears faintly in it, a shadow bending over another shadow. These street-edge lamps remind us that the Bristol Quay was not sealed from the city. Goods moved inward, workers moved outward. News, smells, wages, and weariness traveled both ways. The lamp cleaner's work sits at that boundary, keeping light where the dock becomes street and street becomes dock. It is quiet threshold work, and many old cities are made of thresholds. You may smell bread from a bakery if the wind turns kindly. You may smell fried onions, coal smoke, soap from washwater thrown out somewhere, and the harbour underneath it all. The combination is humble and human. After hours of tar, grain, and wet rope, a domestic smell can strike the senses gently. It reminds you that every man on the quay belongs somewhere beyond his task, even if he is too tired to speak of it. A street lamp and a quay lamp may be maintained by overlapping authorities or different arrangements, depending on exact place and year. But to the passerby, they make one line of reassurance. Light is light when you need to walk home. The cleaner, however, knows the differences. He knows which posts belong to his round, which lamps are his to tend, and which faults must be reported elsewhere. Boundaries live even inside continuous glow. There is comfort in walking a known boundary. You know where your route turns back toward the water. You know where the street noise thins and the harbour takes over again. You know the lamp that marks the change. Perhaps it stands at a corner, where brick gives way to open air and the smell of water returns suddenly. When you clean it, you feel you are cleaning the hinge between two parts of the day. And as the street sounds soften behind us, we return with the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner toward the harbour's working edge, where the final daylight lies low and the first preparations for lighting begin again. The sky has become paler near the horizon and darker above the roofs. The lamps, though still unlit, hold a faint expectancy. Their glass no longer looks like mere glass. It looks like something waiting to receive flame. Evening preparation requires a different alertness from morning cleaning. In the morning, you remove what the night has left. In the evening, you make sure the next night can begin properly. The same object asks for a different kind of care. You check not only whether the pane is clear, but whether it will stay clear enough through burning. You notice not only the latch, but how the wind may test it after dusk. If the lighter follows soon, perhaps you exchange a word with him. A lamp by the waterside steps has a new pane. The corner burner wanted watching. The latch near the grain warehouse has been eased. Such information passes quickly, without ceremony. It is the spoken thread between two parts of the same responsibility. The lighter nods, and in that nod, the day's observations become the evening's caution. If you are the one to light them, the round shifts in your body. The cleaning kit may be reduced or left behind, and the lighting tool becomes central. The movement is more upward, more immediate because flame changes the nature of attention. You approach each lamp knowing it will wake under your hand. The harbour, which has been fading, begins to receive its small gold points one by one. The first lamp lit at dusk can feel almost too bright for a moment. The eye has not yet adjusted to evening. Then the light settles into the general dimness, and its circle becomes part of the quay. You turn from it to the next dark lamp, carrying flame or means of flame along the route. Behind you, the cleaned lamp now stands alive. Ahead, the next waits with its glass reflecting the last of the sky. The Bristol Quay under lighting time has a rhythm unlike any other hour. Day workers are finishing, night workers are beginning, and the lamps mark the handover more gently than any bell. A warehouse door closes. A watchman appears. A late load is moved under growing shadow. The lighter's progress stitches these separate actions together with points of warmth. You can follow the route by looking back at what now glows. Gaslight does not erase the smell of gas, it adds to it. Around a newly lit lamp there is a brief sharper scent, then the air carries it off among all the other harbour smells. The glass warms slowly. The metal crown holds a little heat. If there is soot already forming, the cleaner's eye may catch it with mild annoyance, but also with acceptance. Burning is always the beginning of tomorrow's cleaning. The lamps near the street catch quickly. The ones by the water seem to glow more tenderly because their light is doubled in reflection. The ones near warehouse walls cast firm shapes, making bricks and door frames look almost golden at the edges. Each lamp changes the surface around it. A stone becomes visible. A hinge shines. A puddle turns from dull water into a little basin of light. People adjust to the lamps without thinking. A man steps closer to read a label. Another chooses the lit side of a path. A A boy lingers under a lamp because it feels like a place, not just a brightness. A woman with a basket crosses through the edge of the glow and disappears into the street. The lamp cleaner sees these uses if he is still nearby, and they confirm the worth of the day. There is a calm pride in lighting or seeing lit a row you have cleaned. It is not the pride of applause. It is quieter, more durable. The lamp's function. The root holds. The key is readable. Your hands did what the place required. In a sleep-bound mind, that kind of completion can be deeply restful, because nothing shouts, and yet something real has been accomplished. As the last lamps of the evening round begin to burn, we move with the cleaner into the after-lighting walk. The slow return through a harbour now held by small circles of flame. This walk is not always required in the same form, but it belongs naturally to careful work. You look back. You notice whether anything flickers too much. You see whether one lamp is dimmer than the others. The row speaks in light, and you read it. A lamp burning poorly has a different look from a lamp merely farther away. Its circle is weaker at the edges. The flame may lean or pulse. The glass may catch smoke too quickly. You don't need to rush toward it in alarm. You simply go, inspect, adjust if you can, and leave it better. The old quay accepts such small corrections as part of the evening's settling. The night air cools the face, but the lamps offer brief warm pockets as you pass. Not enough to heat the body, only enough to be felt by the cheek and hand. The contrast is pleasant after a day of damp work. Cold between lamps, warmth beneath them, shadow, glow, shadow, glow. The harbour becomes a slow pattern, and your footsteps fall into it. The sounds are clearer now because there are fewer of them. Water against stone, a rope creaking, a muffled voice from a vessel, a horse shifting in harness, a distant door, your own boots. The lamp flames make almost no sound from the ground, but when you stand close you sense their tiny steadiness. It is like hearing a room breathe. Under one lamp, you may see the soot of your own work still under a fingernail. Despite washing, the light shows it kindly. The body carries proof of the day. Your wrists ache faintly. Your shoulder knows the ladder's weight. Your coat smells of harbour air. These traces are not complaints. They are how the day says it happened. And as the after-lighting walk carries us past the water and back toward the stores, we keep the pace slow because the Bristol Quay lamps have entered their night work and there is no need to hurry away from them. The line behind us glows steadily. The dark between lamps is softer now, because the eye trusts the next circle ahead. The harbour has not become safe by magic. It has become cared for by increments. A night watchman may pass and give a nod. He carries the night forward from where the cleaner leaves it. His boots will cross the pools of light many times before dawn. He will know if one lamp gutters, if a pane cracks in wind, if fog thickens beyond the lamp's reach. Tomorrow, perhaps, his observations will return to the cleaner as morning knowledge. The work circles through people as much as through objects. The stores at night feel different from the stores at noon. The doorway is darker. The interior smells stronger because the day's heat has faded and the scents have settled. Wood, oil, soot, damp wool and metal sit together in the still air. You put down the kit and the sound seems louder than it did in the morning. Tools always sound final when they are set down after a long day. If there is a stove, it may hold a faint red warmth. If not, the room is only less cold than outside. You sort the cloths again, hang what must dry, and place the key where it belongs. The ladder's side rail is wiped where mud has spattered it. A note may be added about the lamp that smoked. The handwriting is plain. The message is enough. Public light rests partly on such ordinary records. You might stand for a moment before stepping back out or heading home, not because the day requires reflection, but because tired bodies sometimes pause when the work has stopped. The mind continues moving for a few seconds after the hands are still. It travels the route again quickly, from the first damp lamp of morning to the last warm flame of evening. Then it lets the route go. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's homeward walk would carry the harbour with him. The smell of gas in his coat, the dark under his nails, the memory of reflected lamps on water. the small lake of ladder work. Streets beyond the quay might be lit as well, but he would see lamps differently from other people. He would notice dirty panes, weak flames, stiff doors, and the color of light through fog. That kind of seeing doesn't end with the shift. Work trains the eye, and the trained eye keeps working softly even at rest. A carpenter sees joints, a sailor sees wind, a typesetter sees letters, a lamp cleaner sees glass and flame. You needn't make anything grand of it. It is simply how daily labor shapes attention, and attention shapes the world a person lives in. As we follow him in thought through the evening streets, Bristol remains close around us, with its damp walls, narrow ways, lit windows, and the low breath of the harbour behind. The lamps along the quay continue without him for now. They burn over ropes, doors, steps, carts, and water. They hold the night open in small portions. Tomorrow, they will be dimmed by use and weather, and he will return to them again. The next day may begin with a harder frost, and the whole harbour feels changed under it. The stones are pale at the edges, iron bites the hand, rope stiffens. Breath rises from men and horses alike. A lamp door may resist because moisture has frozen in the seam. You warm the key in your palm before trying again. The world is quiet in frost, not silent, but tightened, as if sound itself has put on a heavier coat. A frosted lamp glass is beautiful before it is useful. Fine crystals gather along the corners, catching dawn in tiny dull sparks. You clear them away because beauty is not the lamp's morning need. The glass must be clean, dry enough, and ready for another evening. Your cloth scrapes softly over the cold surface. Fingers ache. The soot beneath the frost smears in strange grey patterns, and you work patiently until the pain is honest again. Cold changes smell too. The harbour mud retreats. Coal smoke sharpens. Metal smells cleaner, almost bright. Horses steam near their collars, and leather creaks more stiffly. Tea tastes better on such mornings, even if it is lukewarm by the time you drink it. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner might tuck his chin down, stamp one foot once, and continue, because the route does not shrink for cold. The lamps themselves seem more necessary in winter, when daylight is brief and dusk arrives before the day's business has finished. Cleaning cannot be postponed simply because the air stings. If anything, the need is greater. Longer nights mean longer burning. Longer burning means more soot, more heat stress, more chances for a pane to crack or a burner to clog. Winter gives the cleaner a fuller round and a sterner one. Yet winter also gives the lamps their deepest comfort. A gas flame on a cold quay is not warm like a hearth, but it has the look of warmth, and sometimes that is enough for the spirit. A man crossing slick stone sees the glow ahead and feels less alone. A watchman turns a corner and finds the next lamp waiting. The cleaner's cold fingers have made those small reassurances possible. As the frosted morning moves toward a pale midday, we follow the cleaner back into the same methodical pattern, seeing how the season changes everything except the underlying rhythm. Open the lamp, clear the frost, wipe the soot, brush the burner, check the door, move the ladder. Each step remains familiar, even as the body must answer cold in 100 small ways. You flex the fingers, you breathe into one hand, you keep going. There may be ice in puddles near the base of a post, thin enough to break under the ladder's foot. You clear it if needed, or set the ladder differently. The sound of ice cracking is small but sharp, a little glassy note in the morning. Above, the lamp waits. Below, the quay reminds you that every climb begins with the ground. A safe ladder is part of a clean lamp, though it leaves no visible shine. The cold makes workers quieter. People save breath. Words come in shorter clouds. A carter's face is red above his scarf. A clerk hurries with papers held inside his coat. A dock worker slaps his hands together before lifting. The lamp cleaner is among them, neither more nor less exposed, simply doing the job that belongs to his place in the morning. By noon, weak sun may reach a wall and thaw a narrow strip where you can stand for a moment. The warmth is small, but the body notices. You open your hand in it, letting the fingers loosen. The lamp beside you smells faintly of cold metal and old smoke. When you resume, the cloth moves more easily. Even small warmth can change the whole feeling of a task. A winter lamp's glass may crack from heat and cold meeting too abruptly, especially if already weakened. You look for those lines carefully. Some are obvious, others hide near the frame. A cracked pane in winter is more than untidy because wind can enter and trouble the flame, and rain or sleet can make matters worse. So the cleaner's eye becomes more searching, but still unhurried. Care and haste seldom make good companions. There is also the matter of shorter daylight for the cleaner himself. Afternoon checks must be completed sooner. The round compresses in feeling, even if the route remains the same. Shadows appear while work is still underway. The lamps become both task and deadline, because they must be ready before the darkness that proves their need. You can feel the day leaning over your shoulder earlier than it did in summer, and as winter afternoon dims over the Bristol Quay, we move with the cleaner through a faster fading light, where every cleaned pane seems to wait only a little while before flame returns. The warehouses darken from the inside outward. Doorways become deep. The water loses color. Men carry lanterns sooner, and their small swinging lights cross the quay like thoughts not yet settled. The fixed lamps must soon join them. Lighting in winter has a special softness. The flame appears against a world already hungry for it. One lamp, then the next, each one answering the blue-gray dusk. The cleaned glass glows clearly if the day's work has been good. Reflections on wet or icy stone appear stronger because the surrounding dark is deeper. The whole harbour seems to exhale as the line of lamps wakes. You may have less time to admire the effect because the next lamp waits. Still, the eye receives it. Warm circles form where a short while before there was only dimness. A watchman's coat edge catches gold. A horse's harness buckle shines. Frost on a railing flashes and disappears as you move past. Winter gives light more contrast, and that contrast makes the cleaner's labor visible in a particularly tender way. The cold also makes the end of the day feel more welcome. Tools returned to the shed. Hands near a stove, if there is one. Wet cloths hung away from frost. A note made in a ledger with stiff fingers. The body, after hours of cold and climbing, appreciates every enclosed wall. The harbour remains outside under its lamps, but for a moment you are inside, breathing the mixed smell of soot, wood and warmth. Then summer comes in its turn, not suddenly in our telling, but as a slow change in the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's year. The mornings become lighter, the stones dry faster after rain. The harbour smells stronger at low, warm hours, with mud, tar, fruit, grain, horse, and sun-warmed rope all rising together. The lamps burn for few hours, so the soot may be lighter, but dust and insects bring their own work. The round is still there, altered by heat instead of cold. In summer, the first lamps may be opened under a sky already awake. Birds call from roofs. The water has more color. Workers move with sleeves rolled, and voices carry more easily in the softer air. Your cloth still blackens, though perhaps not so quickly as in long winter burning. The metal is not cruel to the hand. The ladder feels dry and familiar. The day begins with less resistance. Warm weather brings its own grime. Dust rises from drier roads and settles on glass. Insects find lamps at night and leave tiny traces near the warm panes. Tar softens and gives off a thick smell, especially near ropes, barrels, and seams. A lamp near a busy passage may collect a film that is more brown than black, mixed from street dust, smoke, and summer air. You clean it all the same, with the same circular patience. The Bristol Quay in summer can feel almost leisurely for moments, though the work remains steady. Sunlight sits on brick walls. A ship's side gleams where paint is fresh. Men drink from bottles or tins in the shade. Somewhere, fruit may be unloaded, and the smell briefly sweetens the whole passage. You catch it while wiping a pane, a bright note among tar, water, and smoke. Then the wind changes, and it is gone. Longer daylight means the lighting hour comes later, leaving more space between cleaning and flame. That can make the lamps seem dormant through the day, like tools laid out long before use. You check them anyway. Readiness is not less necessary, because dusk is delayed. If anything, the long pause gives weather, dust, and traffic more chances to undo a little of the morning's care. Summer evenings on the quay have their own slow beauty. The lamps are lit when the sky still holds color, so flame and sunset share the harbour for a while. The gaslight looks pale at first, almost unnecessary, then deepens as the sky darkens. You may watch one lamp gradually become more visible without changing at all. It is the world around it that dims, letting its purpose appear. As summer light lingers and the working day stretches, we follow the lamp cleaner through the ordinary adjustments of warm weather, where slower dusk and drier dust change the feel of the same familiar round. The cloth may be drier in the hand, the soot may lift more easily from some panes and cling stubbornly to others. Sweat gathers under the cap while climbing. The smell of your own body joins the work: wool, salt, soap, smoke, and labor. A dry spell makes the keystones pale with dust in the cracks. When carts pass, a faint powder rises and drifts against posts and walls. The lamp glass receives it quietly. It doesn't look dirty at first, but when you wipe, the cloth shows what the eye missed. That is another thing the job teaches. Dirt often appears only when someone begins to remove it. In warmer months, the cleaner may notice more people lingering near the harbour after work, especially where the air moves freely and the lamps later make soft places to stand. The quay is still a workplace, not a promenade in the grand sense, but human beings have always paused where water, light, and evening meet. A man rests on a bollard, two voices talk low near a wall, someone watches reflections without saying so. The lamps serve them as well, though they were installed for practical need. Public light often gathers private moments under its care: a goodbye near a corner, a pause before going home, a child looking at the flame through glass. The cleaner has no claim on these moments, yet his day helps make them possible. That thought can pass through the mind gently, then pass away. A summer storm can arrive after a hot day and change everything in minutes. Rain strikes the keystones hard, lifts the smell of dust, and turns it into something earthy and alive. The lamps hiss faintly if drops hit warm metal after lighting. Glass becomes spotted. Water runs along frames and down posts. The cleaner may see tomorrow's work being made in real time, each streak and splash preparing another morning's cloth. But even storms settle. The air cools. The harbour darkens. The lamps, if well tended, keep burning through the wet. Their reflections multiply in puddles until the quay seems threaded with broken gold. You walk under them with your coat darkened by rain, and the smell of wet wool rises around you. There is no drama in it, only weather passing through a working evening. Through all seasons, the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's year is a circle of return. The lamps age slowly. The route becomes deeply known. Men on the quay change, ships come and go, cargo shifts with trade, but the posts remain in their places unless moved by decision or repair. You might measure your own life by them without meaning to. A new pane here, a repainted post there, a burner changed after months of complaint. Time becomes visible in maintenance, and as the seasons fold back into the steady working year, we stay close to the daily human details: the meals, the hands, the clothing, and the small comforts that carried a lamp cleaner through his Bristol Quay round. His coat would be chosen for wear rather than elegance. Strong cloth, dark enough not to show every mark, though soot has a way of announcing itself even on dark fabric. Pockets matter. A button that holds matters. A cuff that doesn't catch too easily matters. Boots matter perhaps most of all. The quay is stone, water, mud, grit, and sometimes ice. A poor sole makes every step less certain. The lamp cleaner's boots would carry dust, soot, and damp from one end of the round to the other. At home or in the yard, they might leave dark prints if not wiped. Their leather would smell of weather and work. When you imagine the man, imagine the boots first, steady on uneven ground. Hands are the second record. Soot in the creases, small cuts from metal edges, dryness from water and cold, a dark half moon under the nail that no washing fully removes, yet also sensitivity, because these hands know delicate pressure. They know how to turn a worn latch without breaking it, how to lift glass without chipping it, how to feel whether a screw has caught properly. Working hands are not crude hands. They are educated by contact. The midday food, plain as it is, shapes the day's comfort. Bread wrapped in cloth, cheese if there is some, tea perhaps carried warm at first and cooling quickly, a bite eaten in shelter when rain comes on. A shared word over a tin cup. The food does not interrupt the work so much as fold into it. You eat where you can, when the route allows, with the harbour continuing around you. There may be small personal rituals, wiping the key before putting it away, folding the cleanest cloth separately, touching a particular pocket before leaving the yard, making sure the needed tool is there, looking once down the line of lamps before turning home. These habits are not superstition in any grand sense. They are ways of keeping the day from scattering. Routine becomes a kind of gentle self-respect. A lamp cleaner may know many faces without knowing many names. The carter with the quiet horse, the watchman who always mentions weather, the warehouse boy who grew taller across a year, the clerk who keeps his cuffs too clean for the key, the woman who passes near the street edge at the same hour. Workplaces are full of such partial acquaintances, and they make a city feel less anonymous. We walk with him through these modest connections, because they keep the narration human and warm. The Bristol Quay is not merely brick, water, lamp iron, and glass. It is also glances, nods, borrowed words, mild complaints, and the shared acceptance of damp mornings. The lamp cleaner belongs by being useful, and usefulness becomes a kind of quiet membership. He is known as the man with the ladder, the cloths, the keys, the one who tends the lamps. At times, there might be annoyance from others, a ladder in the way, a lamp not bright enough, a repair not made quickly, a carter impatient to pass. But the tone of the day remains practical. Irritations arise and fade. Work continues because it must. The cleaner learns not to carry every sharp word. Soot already gives the hands enough to hold. There is also companionship with the lamps themselves, though that may sound fanciful if said too loudly. Better to say he knows them. He knows their positions, failings, moods in weather, and usefulness after dark. A lamp that has been cleaned for years becomes familiar in the same way a stair rail does. You don't speak to it necessarily. You simply know its feel before your hand arrives. And as we keep moving through these human details, the Bristol Quay settles into a broader picture of working life in the 1880s, where public systems depended on quiet labor repeated by people whose names were seldom preserved. The newspapers might mention new docks, civic improvements, trade figures, storms, ceremonies, and disputes. They would not often pause for the daily wiping of lamp glass. Yet without such wiping, improvement itself would dim. This is one reason the lamp cleaner's day is worth our slow attention. It shows us the underside of public order. Not the speeches, not the plans, not the grand openings, but the cloth on glass after a smoky night. The ladder against iron, the report of a cracked pane, the clean flame at dusk. A city's confidence is built from thousands of small acts that almost disappear when done well. You can feel that truth under your hand as the key turns in another lamp door. The action is tiny. The implication is wide. Someone will pass here later and trust the ground because light falls on it. Someone will guide a cart, find a door, check a rope, or make a note by that glow. They may never think of the cleaner, and that is all right. The light remains useful. The harbour itself is also a machine of repetitions. Ships arrive, goods unload, warehouses fill and empty, ledgers open and close, ropes are coiled, uncoiled, and coiled again. Lamps burn, blacken, are cleaned, and burn again. The lamp cleaner's routine fits into that larger machinery without losing its human softness. He is one quiet moving part, but a living one, with cold fingers, hunger, memory, and care. As night comes once more across the quay, and the lamps bloom one by one in their cleaned glass, we continue along the old route without hurry, letting the circle of work carry us forward into the next dim pool of light, and the next dim pool of light holds the same old harbour, but from inside it, everything feels newly placed. The stone edge shows its wet outline, a rope lies thick and dark near the bollard, a warehouse door has a narrow shine along its iron strap. You step through that glow with the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's tired steadiness, and then you pass into the softer dark between lamps, trusting the next clean flame ahead. This is how the evening route teaches distance. Not in yards or paces alone, but in intervals of light, you come to know how long the shadow lasts between one post and another, where the ground feels uncertain, where a wall blocks the wind, where a lamp circle overlaps another just enough to make a corner easy. The lamp cleaner knows these measures because his work has made them visible. His body carries the map in warm fragments. A man standing under one lamp may not see the next clearly if fog is rising, but the cleaner remembers it there. Memory fills the gap before light does. In the 1880s, Bristol Harbour, that memory is not sentimental. It is practical and earned. You have carried the ladder there, set it on the stones, opened that door, wiped that glass, and watched that flame catch at dusk. A place becomes known by what your hands have done to it. Along the quay, the night watchman's lantern may swing once, then disappear behind stacked goods. A vessel creaks at its mooring. Somewhere inside a warehouse, a late worker moves a crate across boards, making a hollow scrape that travels through the wall. The gas lamps do not remove the night's mystery, but they keep it at a workable distance. They let people continue softly inside the dark, without pretending the dark has gone. You may notice how each flame responds to air. In a sheltered place, it stands upright and calm. Near an open corner, it leans with the draft, pressing its light harder against one pane. If a lamp has been well cleaned, this leaning flame still spreads kindly. If the pane were dirty, the light would thicken and shrink. The cleaner sees cause and result in the same glance, and that makes the work quietly satisfying. The reflections in the harbour water are looser than the lamps above. They lengthen, break, and gather again with the smallest motion. A passing boat's ripple turns one reflection into a ladder of gold pieces. Then the water settles, and the light becomes a trembling column once more. We can stand beside the Bristol Quay for a breath, and watch the cleaned lamps make two harbours, one of stone and one of moving light. But the worker does not stand long. The route has its remaining duties. A lamp at the next corner needs one last look, because earlier its latch felt uncertain. You climb carefully, feeling the evening damp on the rung. The glass is warm now, and the little door gives a soft metal sound when touched. The latch holds. Your thumb knows it before your eye confirms it. You step down, and the harbour resumes its low murmur around you. There is something almost musical in these confirmations. Not melody exactly, but pattern. A latch that holds, a flame that steadies, a pane that shines, a step down from the ladder, the shoulder taking the weight again. When repeated across a long route, these small results become a kind of working rhythm, and the listener can rest inside it, as though the harbour itself were breathing slowly. And as the night work settles into its steady pattern, we turn our attention to the training of such a cleaner, because no one begins by knowing how Bristol Quay lamps behave in rain, fog, frost, and dusk. A younger man might first carry tools, hold the ladder, fetch cloths, or watch how an older hand opens each lamp without forcing it. He would learn by standing close enough to smell the soot and see what the cloth removes. The first lesson is patience with small mechanisms. A stiff door is not a challenge to be conquered. It is a message to be understood. A young cleaner may tug too hard, smear soot across a pane, or miss the narrow ledge where grime gathers. The older man corrects him without drama, perhaps with only a few words. Look there, fold the cloth, try the latch again. In such ways the trade passes quietly from hand to hand. He would learn the lamps by route rather than by diagram. The one near the warehouse corner, the one by the steps, the one where wind comes hard off the water, the one that smokes when fog lies low. The names are practical, tied to place and problem. You can imagine the young man repeating them inwardly until the sequence settles in the feet. A route learned well becomes easier to walk than to explain. Training also means learning the social movement of the quay, where to set the ladder so carts can pass, when to wait, whom to ask before blocking a warehouse door, which foreman dislikes delay, which watchman gives useful reports. The lamps stand still, but the workplace around them is always moving. A good cleaner must attend to both the fixed and the passing, without letting either unsettle him. The older cleaner may show how to test the ladder before climbing. A small press of weight, a glance at the stones, A shift of the foot if grit lies badly beneath it. No grand warning is needed. The habit itself teaches caution. The young man sees that speed is not the same as skill. A steady ladder, a clean pane, and a closed latch are worth more than a round hurried into carelessness. The sense of smell is trained too. Ordinary lamp smell becomes familiar, so that anything unusual can be noticed. Gas near a fitting, damp trapped inside a casing, oil residue from an older lamp, fresh paint on a post, hot metal after lighting. These scents are part of the cleaner's vocabulary. We often think work is learned through words, but here the nose, hand, and ear receive their lessons first. A young cleaner would also learn how to carry dirt without spreading it. A blackened cloth must not be used thoughtlessly on a pane already nearly clean. A dirty hand can mark a frame just wiped. A tool laid in grit returns grit to the lamp. The work is humble, but it still has standards. Cleanliness is not an idea floating above the task. It is a sequence of exact choices, made while standing on wet stone. And as the younger hand learns the route, we move with him and the older cleaner through another morning on the Bristol Quay, feeling how repeated instruction becomes calm practice. The older man opens the first lamp. The younger watches the angle of the key, the way the door is supported as it swings, the way the cloth is folded before touching glass. Then the younger tries the next one. His movements are slower. That is right. Soot rewards patience more than force. The younger man wipes the center of the pane first, proud of the clear patch, but the older cleaner points to the corners. Light is lost at the edges too. The cloth presses into the frame. A dark line comes away. The young man sees it and says little. The lesson has landed through the hand, which is often better than landing through pride. They move on together. The harbour makes its morning noises around them. Carts, hooves, pulleys, doors, gulls, low voices, and the lap of water. The younger man learns which sounds matter to his work. Wheels approaching mean the ladder must wait. A loose rattle in a lamp door means the latch should be checked. The scrape of the ladder foot on stone tells whether it has settled. Listening becomes part of seeing. At midday, perhaps they eat in the shelter of a wall. The older cleaner with hands that never look fully clean. The younger still trying to rub soot from his knuckles. Bread tastes better after cold work. Tea feels almost luxurious if it has kept any warmth. The older man may say very little, but the silence is not unfriendly. It is the silence of people who have spent the morning inside the same rhythm. By afternoon, the younger hand begins to anticipate the next step. He reaches for the brush before being told. He checks the latch after closing. He looks at the burner, not only the glass. These are small advances, invisible to anyone passing, but plain to the person teaching him. Apprenticeship in such work is not marked by ceremony. It is marked by fewer corrections, cleaner panes, and a body that begins to move without confusion. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's knowledge is therefore communal, though often unnamed. Every experienced hand carries lessons from another hand, a better way to fold cloth, a warning about a wind-struck corner, a habit of checking the ladder twice in frost, a memory of a lamp that once failed after being ignored. The route itself stores these lessons, and each new cleaner learns by walking through them. There is comfort for us in imagining that transfer. It means the work does not belong only to one man. It belongs to a chain of attention across years, each worker adding a little experience, each lamp receiving care from hands that learned from other hands. The lamps burn for the public, but their upkeep is held in this quieter human inheritance. You can feel it in the worn key and polished ladder rail. As the training day softens toward evening, the young cleaner sees his morning work become flame for the first time. A pane he cleaned now glows. The corner he nearly missed catches light clearly. The older man may not praise him much, but perhaps he gives a nod. In such work a nod can carry enough. The lamp itself offers the rest, shining steadily through glass that young hands helped clear. And as another evening gathers around the Bristol Quay, we leave the training round and follow the older rhythm of accounts, wages, and municipal order, the less visible paperwork behind the gentle glow. Lamps are physical things, but they also belong to budgets, contracts, inspections, and schedules. Someone must know how many panes were replaced, which burners failed, which posts need painting, how much labor was spent, and where complaints have been made. This paperwork is quieter than the quay, but not separate from it. A ledger in an office may smell of ink, dust, and damp wool from men coming in out of weather. The pages are ruled, the handwriting is functional. Lamp numbers or descriptions may stand beside brief notes. Cracked glass, smoked badly, door loose, repaired. To a sleepy ear, such phrases may sound plain, but they are the written shadow of the day's route. A Bristol Quay lamp cleaner might not control those records, but his observations feed them. He carries information from lamp to clerk, from flame to line of ink. The harbour's light depends on this movement from sensory fact to practical note. If the pane is broken and no one records it, the fault may linger. If the burner smokes and no one says so, tomorrow's cleaning grows heavier. Even the quietest systems need memory. Offices near working harbours often hold a different kind of stillness. You hear the scratch of pen nibs, the turning of pages, the dull thump of a stamp, the murmur of men comparing entries. Outside, carts roll and ropes creak. Inside, numbers and notes try to keep pace with the material world. The lamp cleaner, if he steps in, brings the smell of soot and weather into the room for a moment. There may be a clock on the wall, steady and stern, measuring hours more cleanly than the harbour ever feels them. The cleaner's day is measured also by light, fatigue, route, and weather, but the office turns it into time kept and work assigned. This is not unkind. It is simply another layer of the same public service. Lamps need hands, and hands are scheduled, paid, and directed by someone's orderly marks. Wages for such work would not make a man rich. They would be part of a modest household economy, counted against rent, food, coal, boots, and all the small expenses that make ordinary life. The lamp cleaner's day, for all its public usefulness, would come home as a weekly or regular sum folded into family need. We keep that in mind gently. Warm realism includes the plain fact that careful work was often paid plainly. Yet pride does not require wealth. A man may take satisfaction in a sound route, a clean row of lamps, a fault caught early, and the respect of those who know the work. Pride can live in competence. It can live in being the person who knows the lamps better than anyone else. On the Bristol Quay, that kind of pride would be quiet enough to pass unnoticed and strong enough to carry a man through rain. The accounts also show how individual lamps become part of a larger civic body. One cracked pane is tiny. Many cracked panes mean cost. One poor burner is a nuisance. Many poor burners mean a district grows dim. Maintenance turns scattered small things into an organized responsibility. The cleaner sees the small thing first. The system, when it works, answers through repair, supply, and continued labor. And as the ink dries in the office and the harbour keeps moving outside, we return to the lamps themselves, because their materials deserve our slow attention too. Iron, glass, brass, soot, gas, paint, and flame all meet in a small public object. Each material has a feel and a behavior. The cleaner's hands know them, not as a scholar might, but as a worker knows what will cut, stain, warm, loosen, or break. The iron post is the lamp's body. It stands in weather, takes knocks, holds brackets, and receives paint as protection. Under the hand it may feel rough, cold, or slick with rain. Old paint thickens around details and chips at exposed edges. Rust begins where water lingers. If ignored, the post would slowly surrender to weather. So painting and inspection belong to the same world as wiping glass, even if done by different hands. Glass is the lamp's eye. It seems hard, yet it is vulnerable to knocks, heat, careless tools, and sudden stress. Old glass may have slight waves or bubbles, small irregularities that bend the flame. When clean, these imperfections can make the light shimmer in a pleasing way. When dirty, they hold soot in uneven patterns. The cleaner must treat glass firmly enough to clean it, gently enough to preserve it. Brass or other fittings have their own character. They may darken, polish at points of touch, or stiffen where dirt enters. A screw head can become worn by poor handling. A hinge can sag. A burner can clog. The metal parts are small, but they govern the flame's reliability. You learn to respect small metal. It rarely forgives impatience. Soot is the nightly visitor. It is soft, dirty, persistent, and strangely delicate. It floats, settles, smears and hides. It blackens cloth and fingers. It marks the inside of the lamp like a record of burning. The cleaner does not hate soot. He simply expects it. In a gaslit harbour, soot is part of light's price, and every morning the price is paid in cloth and time. Gas itself remains invisible until flame gives it a face. To the cleaner, it is known by smell, by fittings, by flame behavior, by the rules of caution built into habit. It travels unseen through pipes beneath the working surface of Bristol. This hidden movement makes visible work possible. There is something quietly remarkable in that. Though the workers of the day might treat it as ordinary infrastructure, another fact of the modern city, paint holds the weather at bay for a while. It is practical color, not decoration alone. A freshly painted post may look almost proud for a week. Then the harbour begins to claim it again with dust, scratches and damp. Paint smells strong when new, oily and thick. It marks sleeves if brushed too soon. The lamp cleaner learns which posts are fresh and gives them space until they harden into the working world. Flame is the final material. Though it cannot be held, it responds to all the others. Clear glass lets it speak. Clean burners shape it. Good fittings feed it. Sound doors guard it. Weather tests it. The cleaner spends his day with the things that make flame useful, and at dusk, flame repays the attention by becoming public light. You can imagine how pleasing that transformation feels, even after years. As we move from material to material, the Bristol Quay stays under our feet. This is not a workshop display. It is a living harbour where these substances meet under real weather and use. Iron is not abstract when a cart has struck it. Glass is not abstract when your cloth catches on a cracked edge. Soot is not abstract when it works into the skin. The job teaches through contact, and contact keeps knowledge humble. And as the materials of the lamp settle into our awareness, we follow the cleaner through a day shaped by particular places along the Bristol waterfront, each stretch of quay giving the same work a slightly different tone. Broad open places make the ladder feel exposed. Narrow passages make it awkward. Warehouse walls shelter the flame but collect dust. Waterside posts gather damp. Street corners catch wind and attention. Near a broad quay space, the sky feels larger. There may be more room to set the ladder, but also more traffic to watch. Carts turn, men cross, goods are set down temporarily, and the lamp cleaner must choose his moment. The lamp stands above this movement, receiving smoke and dust from all directions. When you climb, you are briefly elevated into the traffic's upper air, where sound rises around you in layers. In a narrower place between buildings, the air can feel still and close. Smells linger longer. Soot, old straw, damp brick, and stored goods gather in the passage. The lamp glass may be greasy with a film that doesn't come from one clear source. You clean it while listening to footsteps approach before the person appears. The walls make small sounds intimate. A cough, a key, a boot scrape, all seem nearer than they are. At the water steps, the lamp has a special tenderness. Steps are places of transition, often wet, sometimes slick, and easily misjudged after dark. A clear lamp nearby helps define each edge. The cleaner may take extra care there, wiping the glass until the flame will fall cleanly over the top stones. You can imagine someone later descending with a rope or message, placing each foot with help from that glow. Near warehouses that hold grain, dust is fine and pale. It settles differently from coal soot, almost softening surfaces before darkening them with mixed grime. The smell is dry, warm and slightly sweet when the doors are open. A lamp there gathers the day's flowery breath, then the night smoke. Your cloth comes away with grey-brown streaks. The work has the texture of the cargo around it. Near coal or fuel handling, the dirt is darker and more assertive. Black dust lies on ledges, boots, and lower walls. It gets into everything. A lamp in such a place can lose brightness quickly if neglected. The cleaner may feel there is no true victory over that dust, only daily resistance. Yet daily resistance is enough. The lamp does not need purity, it needs serviceable clarity. Near timber, the air can smell resinous, especially after rain or when fresh wood has been moved. Sawdust may cling in corners. The lamp post might be scratched by passing lengths of wood. The cleaner's eye checks for dents and looseness. Timber yards and dockside stores carry a quieter scent than coal, but their loads are no less physical. The lamp stands among them all, bearing witness through soot. Near the street approaches, as we have felt, the lamps gather the city's mixed residue: chimney smoke, road dust, human touch, rain from roofs, and the occasional smear from pasted notices or leaning shoulders. These lamps seem more social, if one can say that softly. They serve crossings, meetings, errands, departures, and returns. The cleaner tends them with the same method, but the world passing beneath them is more varied. And as we pass from place to place, we begin to sense how the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's route is not merely a line, but a collection of atmospheres threaded together by work. Each lamp is similar enough to calm the mind, yet different enough to hold attention. That is an ideal rhythm for sleep, and perhaps for labor too. Repetition carries you forward. Variation keeps you gently awake. The day's middle hours may include waiting for access to a lamp blocked by goods. A stack of crates has been set down beneath it, or a cart stands too close, or men are unloading directly where the ladder must go. You wait or return later. The lamp is not forgotten. It is moved in the mind to another part of the route. Such adjustments are common, and a good cleaner holds them without fuss. Waiting has its own sensory life. You lean the ladder, rest one hand on the rail, and watch dust turn in a shaft of light. You smell a horse cropping at feed from a nosebag. You hear a rope strain and settle. You feel the weight of the key in your pocket. The delay is not empty, because the key is never empty of detail. It gives the mind something soft to hold. When the crates move, the lamp reappears as if returned to you. You set the ladder and climb. The glass may be worse for having stood above busy loading, but that is no surprise. You clean it, perhaps with a little more pressure at the lower edge. The men who blocked it earlier may not notice. That is all right. Your obligation was to the lamp and to the evening it will serve. A blocked lamp can also reveal how closely the route depends on access. Public maintenance happens in public space, and public space is crowded with other needs. The cleaner learns flexibility. He cannot insist that the whole quay pause for his cloth and brush. He also cannot let inconvenience become neglect. So the day becomes a gentle puzzle, worked out through memory, timing, and return. As afternoon thins, the delayed lamp is done, and the route feels complete again. There is relief in closing such a loop. You may not speak of it, but the body knows when something pending has been resolved. The line of lamps in the mind becomes smooth. Each one has been touched, checked, cleaned, or noted. The evening can come without that small unfinished weight. And as the route completes its practical obligations, we move into the slower, inward part of the lamp cleaner's experience. The way such repetitive work shapes thought while the hands continue. A person doing steady manual tasks may think in long, quiet currents. Not every thought is profound. Many are ordinary. Supper, rent, weather, a boot that needs mending, a child's cough, the timing of tomorrow's round. The beauty of repetitive work is that it allows thought without requiring performance. Your hands remain occupied. Your mind drifts and returns. A sound on the key brings you back. A stubborn latch narrows attention. Then the rhythm opens again. In this way, the Bristol Quay lamp cleaner might pass through concern, memory, planning, and simple awareness while still doing the work well. Perhaps he remembers a lamp as it was years earlier, before a post was replaced or a warehouse wall repaired. Perhaps he thinks of a man who once worked the route with him. Perhaps he notices that a young laborer now walks with the same gait as his father. Workplaces hold time in such comparisons. The key changes slowly enough for memory to fasten to its details. There is room, too, for small pleasures. A pane that cleans easily, a morning when the air is mild, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby street, a new cloth, a latch repaired properly after months of sticking, the first clear light after fog, a moment under shelter during rain. These pleasures are modest, but modest pleasures suit a life of daily return. They do not demand much, and so they give freely. You may find that the body begins to look forward to certain points in the route. a sheltered wall for eating, a view across the harbour from a particular lamp, a friendly nod from a watchman, a place where the wind is always at your back instead of in your face. These are not holidays. They are small resting places within labour, and they matter more than outsiders might guess. The lamp cleaner's thoughts may also empty at times, leaving only the action itself. Cloth on glass, brush on metal, key in lock, ladder lifted, foot on stone, breath in cold air. Such moments can be deeply peaceful, because the mind is not absent, only quieted. It rests in the doing. For a listener drifting towards sleep, that is perhaps the gentlest part of the work to imagine. And as thought and task move together, we return once more to the evening harbour, because all the inward quiet of the day eventually becomes outward light along the Bristol Quay. The flame is lit, the pane glows, the stone is visible, the route behind the worker is written in amber. We can follow it without needing to speak loudly, letting each lamp appear, pass, and remain behind us. A cleaned lamp seen from a distance has a softened edge. It does not glare. It gathers the nearby world into a small, usable circle. A bollard, a rope, a corner of door, a wet stone, a person's lower face under a cap. The rest remains shadowed. That balance is part of old gaslit nights. They are not bright in the modern way. They invite slower movement, closer seeing, and a different kind of attention. In fog, the lamps become halos. Their light does not travel far, but it makes a warm cloud around each post. You may see a figure enter that cloud, become clear for a few steps, and then dissolve again. The lamp cleaner, knowing the glass is clean, can accept that the fog is doing what fog does. Some limits belong to weather, not workmanship. Peace comes from knowing the difference. In rain, each lamp becomes many lamps. One in the lantern, one in each puddle, one broken along the wet edge of a cartwheel, one stretched over the harbour water. The cleaner's day multiplies under rain, because every clean pane now sends light into surfaces that hold and scatter it. A wet quay at night can look almost tender when you walk slowly enough. In clear cold, the lamps stand sharp and golden, with hard dark between them. Frost may catch their light along rails and stone edges. Breath passes through the glow and disappears. Sounds carry farther. The cleaner may be indoors by then, but his work remains outside, making the cold legible for those who continue. A winter lamp has a brave look, though we needn't make it grand. It simply burns. The Bristol Quay lamp cleaner's days, taken one by one, would not seem remarkable to many observers, but gathered slowly, they become a portrait of care repeated under changing skies. Morning after morning, night after night, the lamps pass through soot and clarity, darkness and flame. The cleaner passes with them. His work is almost circular, and circles can be soothing when they are made of useful acts. As we drift through that circle, we can feel the old harbour settling around us again, not as a dramatic scene, but as a place of damp stone, steady flame, tired hands, and work that returns without complaint. The next lamp waits just ahead, its glass holding a faint reflection of the water, its metal cool at the edge where the flame has not yet warmed it. You step closer, lift the key, and listen for the latch.